As skinny as like one of these kids you see in like Ethiopia on the news, yell and scream at people when they walk in the house with their shoes on. They said, if you don't drink this, you're gonna get tube. I literally drank that shake the first time. I just chugged it. And I like cried. Everything just went black for like 10 seconds. Like I was gonna black out. Doing all those exercises, and like I'd do like a set and just lay on the floor for like 10 minutes, just like dead. Welcome everybody to the Mongoose Mindset Podcast. Today in this discussion, I'm going to discuss the beginning of my fitness journey and then also go into my eating disorder, how that developed and how that transpired throughout my life. And I'm just going to say this start of my journey, my fitness journey, plus the eating disorder was probably the worst thing that happened to me health-wise, but it's also the best thing that happened to me also, because I wouldn't be where I am today if that wouldn't have happened to me. So I just want to put that out there. So I started out in my fitness journey at 12 years old. I was in 6th grade. And before 6th grade, I was one of the bigger kids in school. I wasn't obese by any means, but I had extra body fat on me, definitely. I wasn't like extremely fat, but I was chubby for my age. And before I even started losing weight and going on a diet and doing the Navy SEAL stuff, I wanted to be fat. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't care. I love to eat. I mean, I still love to eat to this day, but I guess having that eating disorder caused me to not be eating so much now to where I'll get fat again. I'm able to restrict myself and be able to do what I need to stay lean and stay healthy. So when I was about in 6th grade, I started getting into military stuff, watching YouTube videos on Navy SEALs, and I just fell in love with it. I felt like that's what I wanted to do at such a young age, even though I was so young. It's pretty crazy to think that I wanted to do that extreme of a goal at that young of an age. I just became obsessed with it, and I think that's just how I was as a person. Like everything I did, I feel like my whole life, it's because I was obsessed with something and obsessed with a goal, or just obsessed with something in general. Like even before, I was very, very OCD, and I still am to this day, but I'm not as bad as I was. But like there were times where like I'd come home from school and I'd have a separate pair of clothes for me to wear because I was afraid of getting the germs that I got at school of those clothes on like the couch and stuff. It was really, really bad. Or I'd yell and scream at people when they walk in the house with their shoes on and stuff like that. That was just really, really bad. Just the way I was. I got into the Navy SEAL stuff. I started watching these videos and documentaries and movies. And one movie that really stood out to me was American Sniper with Chris Kyle in it. He just seemed as like a good role model for me. And then I got like a book. It was like a Navy SEAL workout book, basically just body weight exercises that my dad had his friend at work had shared it with him so I could, read it and do these workouts or whatever, since that's what I was interested in. So I got this book. These guys in there, were big, were muscular, just what I wanted to look like, which now looking back at it today, Navy SEALs aren't really big and muscular. They're like lean and able to do push-ups and stuff for minutes, able to run and swim. Like those big muscular jack dudes on those videos were probably not doing that. They were probably just models for that book. Now that I realize that today, I started doing these exercises in this book. I started losing some weight. I started dieting, and I didn't really know how to diet like I do now. So I thought carbs were bad. I started cutting out all carbs. I even cut out all fats because I thought fats were bad. I just thought all I need is the protein. So I started eating less and less food and doing more and more and more aerobic work and push-ups and sit-ups. And I was doing it like push-ups and sit-ups for like 2 to 3 hours a day. And then on top of that, running. And some days I'd swim in our pool. Some days I'd try to go ride on the bike and stuff like that. And I was just doing way too much, and I was just breaking down my body. But in the beginning, it wasn't that bad because I was just starting. And people were actually giving me compliments. They were saying, "Oh, you're looking better. You're looking good. You're losing a bit of body fat." It was good at first. And especially my parents, they think I took that and I just ran with it. Like I had compliments, so I just wanted to keep going with that same thing. So I kept going. It drove me down into a hole, but I was still working out. I was still not eating hardly anything, I was at the point where I was tired all day. It took me 2 to 3 hours to get through my kind of push-up routine or whatever. I was doing everything in the book, doing all those exercises, and like I'd do like a set and just lay on the floor for like 10 minutes, just like dead. And I remember there was one time one of my cousins came over. He was like a year or two younger than me. He came over to sleep over, and he was playing video games. We were playing Minecraft or whatever. He was like, "Are you ever gonna be done? I feel like you're just laying on the floor half the time." I didn't get mad at him or anything. I just, kind of put it off and still continue to do my thing. And that really was a time in my life where I should have been enjoying. I think every kid should enjoy their life and enjoy their friends and stuff at that age, because that's the time where you shouldn't have to worry about doing things like that or that type of stress. That was just one story that stood out to me. I remember really, really good. During this time, there was a lot of times where I'd get up in the morning and I'd stand straight up, or just during the day, I'd get up and I couldn't see anything. Everything just went black for like 10 seconds. Like I was gonna black out. When I peed, you could smell the ketones in my urine. I was starting to look like a skeleton. After 6th grade, during that summer, I still continued doing this. We actually went on vacation to Orlando, Florida, to like Universal Studios. I had been wanting to do that for years. I loved Harry Potter, and I've been wanting to go see Harry Potter World because all the commercials on TV and everything. We went down there, and I couldn't enjoy it. I couldn't enjoy it because I was so in my head that, I gotta work out, I gotta eat right, I gotta do all this. I remember when I was a kid, I wanted to go there and try the butterbeer, try all like the candies and stuff that they had, which all that stuff's not healthy for you in the end of the day, but I guess in moderation it is. But at the time I was as skinny as like one of these kids you see in like Ethiopia on the news, and I just couldn't enjoy it. I was literally afraid every day when we went out into like the parks and everything that I might pass out because of how hot it was. That's how undernourished I was. I was still drinking a lot of water. I wasn't afraid to drink water. I was just afraid I was going to pass out, and I still just kept eating hardly anything. This is literally what a daily diet would look like for me when I was in the worst part of it. I'd wake up in the morning for breakfast. I'd have 1 egg and 1 slice of turkey bacon. That was it. For lunch, we went to Aldi and we got like, the lunch meat or whatever. I started out eating wraps and stuff, like, low carb wraps and like cheese and mayo. It got to the point where I was just eating the meat, and it was the meat with 0 grams of carbs in it. It was like the roast beef. I hated the taste of it, but the only reason why I ate it is because it had 0 carbs, it had 0 fat in it. At least that's what it's on the label. And then for dinner, the only thing I would have is a can of tuna, maybe about that big. And maybe I would eat it all. Maybe I wouldn't. I'm probably not even intaking 500 calories in a day. That's go to say how much I was restricting myself, and I was continuing to exercise. So after we got back from that vacation, we went to the doctor one day because my parents, they really didn't know what to do, because they had never really experienced anybody who had this same issue that I was having. And so we went to the doctor, and he kind of said, like, diagnosed me, yeah, he's got, anorexia, but we don't really know what to do about it. We don't treat that. He recommended me to go to this place called Veritas Collaborative in North Carolina, which is Durham, North Carolina, which is basically an in-person eating disorder treatment facility. We went down there. I wish I could find that picture that my dad took of me, but I remember he took a picture of what I looked like before I went in there. I wish I could look back on that picture and just see how like skinny and nasty I looked, just to see how far I've come and maybe show y'all. But I'm gonna see if maybe I can find that, and then if not, it's gone probably. It's somewhere in the cloud, but I'm probably not gonna be able to find it. But so we went down there. I got, I guess, onboarded, if you want to call it that, into their facility, and they took so much blood. They did all these lab testings and stuff like that, like initially when you go in. And then once you go in, they did like labs like every 3 days when you start, because they want to make sure you're not dying or whatever. Like my arm was like bruised, all like black and blue from all the blood they were taking and everything. It just wasn't a fun experience. This place, it was really like low down, and like they say, I guess you could call it low stress. But you got to think, I was going from exercising and doing all this stuff and not eating hardly anything to now I'm in a facility where they're telling you, oh, you got to sit down, you got to do this. They're telling you to like sit down and recover which obviously I guess is recovery, but yeah, I needed that. At the time, I didn't want to do that because I go from doing one extreme to the other. It's crazy. And I just was so bored. Like I hated, I really do hate therapy. I don't really like therapy or anything like that, but I hated therapy. I hated doing all the stuff that we were doing in there. If we were doing anything, half the time we were just sitting around in the common room. And the only thing I did to pass the time was play cards. I was in there for 2 weeks before they let me like go outside on like their patio time. But I didn't step outdoors anywhere for 2 weeks. Those first days in there were tough because I was afraid I was going to get like a feeding tube put down my nose. I didn't want that. There were tons of kids in there who had feeding tubes in them. And I just looked at them. I was like, I don't want that, man. I don't want that thing down my throat or down my nose, down my esophagus, or wherever it goes. And it just looked uncomfortable. So the way how they did it is they took you to the meals and snacks. You had 3 meals and then 2 snacks. And so we went to the kitchen each time, and it's either you ate your meal or snack, or at least half of it, and then if you didn't eat it, or if you ate half of it, they'd supplement with like half a shake, or they'd supplement with a whole shake. And me starting out, I was going in there, I was still eating the protein. I was all right with eating protein. They said, if you don't drink this, you're gonna get a tube. I'm like, I don't want no tube. So I literally drank that shake. The first time, I just chugged it, and I like cried. I don't know if I was like in fear or just embarrassment that I had to do that. I just started drinking the shakes because I'm like, I'm not getting a tube put in me. So I'd eat the protein, drink the shakes. Eat the protein, drink the shakes. Each meal, each snack, I'd do the same thing. So it got to the point where I wasn't getting anywhere. I knew I had to do something to get out of there because the kids that were getting out of there, they were eating their foods and everything like that. They were doing the things they needed to do. I noticed what I needed to do to get out. So one day I went into like a therapy session with my therapist there. And my mom was there, and I told both my mom and therapist, I said, I'm thinking I'm going to start eating the fruits and vegetables. I'll eat the proteins and fruits and vegetables, and we'll start there. And they're like, okay, that's a good idea, yada, yada, yada. So I did it. I did it the first meal. I ate the protein, I ate the fruits and vegetables. They still supplemented me with half a shake, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. I ate half the plate. The only thing that's left is the carbs. And you still making me supplement. So I went like, screw it. I'm going to eat the whole thing. And if they say it's all the same thing going in, whether you get the food, whether you eat the food, whether you drink the supplement, or whether you get the feeding tube juice down your nose, it's all the same nutrition. I did it. I just started eating. I ate every single thing they put on my plate. And when you first start, you're on I think it's a blue card, where the therapeutic assistance has to get your food. But then as you go, you get on a yellow card, you get to plate your meals. I think it's either just your meals or just your snacks. And then you get on the green card where you get to plate everything. You get to plate your meals, your snacks, all that. Like you get options, like, what carbs you want, what proteins you want, but everybody has like their specific of what they need to eat. And then the therapeutic assistants, they approve of what you're doing, whether you need to add some more, add some more, yeah. On top of all this, we had like, I hated the challenge snack, so I thought that was stupid. Because you're basically, like, if you want to eat healthy, let them eat healthy. But I kind of get what they were doing. They're trying to introduce you back into society and make you want to eat those foods again so you can be kind of normal. There was like challenge snacks where you had ice cream or M&Ms. Every Friday they had Pizza Friday. Like one Friday they get Domino's for everybody, and the next Friday you could make your own pizza. So it was a really good kitchen. Like the kitchen was amazing. The foods they gave you were culinary Michelin star chef meals. But it's funny because none of those kids wanted to eat the meals or me. But after a while, I was in there for 12 weeks. I lived in there for 12 weeks. And then I finally got to go out on like their partial hospitalization program, which I stayed in North Carolina for 2 weeks because they had that program there, because they said they recommended me stay there so it wasn't a big change going back home. Throughout this whole time, my mom, she had got like an apartment there. First was taking like family leave to stay there in North Carolina with me, but then, after time went on, you can't use but so much. So they were driving back and forth a lot to see me. So once I got on the partial hospitalization thing, I did that for 2 weeks where I had to go in during the day, then come home at night. It was basically like a job. Went back to Richmond, Virginia, and I did their partial hospitalization program there for like however many other weeks I had to do. That was probably even worse. Like, it was probably even more boring there. I mean, it was closer. It was cool because I got to go home, like at my actual home at night, but it was just really boring. So I got out of that and started going back to school. First half of 7th grade, I wasn't even in school. My friends were like, "Oh my God, where's Luke at? Did he die? Did he move and not tell anybody?" So I came back and everybody was like, "Man, Luke, where were you? Blah, blah, blah." I said, "Man, I was in the hospital." I was just embarrassed to tell them like what had really happened, which I was in the hospital, but I was embarrassed to tell them that, what I was going through. And like they brought me back. They wouldn't let me do like PE. I couldn't go to lunch. Like, I ate my lunch in the classroom. And yeah, it was just a different aspect. And at the same time too, my parents still had to take me to like therapist sessions and psychiatrists and dietitian meetings, which those weren't helpful at all. They really weren't. Especially the therapy sessions, they were just a waste of time because half the time I didn't really want to talk anyway. The psychiatrist was a joke. They wanted to put me on like antidepressants and stuff like that, which I'm like, I guess I was kind of depressed. It wasn't to the point to where I wanted to kill myself, and that was the reason why I was doing what I was doing. I wasn't depressed. I mean, if you need antidepressants, you got to get them, but I didn't need them, I don't think. After all meeting with those doctors and everything, I finally was like on my own. And my parents, they still tried to, I guess, challenge me. Like, I still eat like the foods that they eat. And, okay, you got to go out to eat with us once in a while. And I just hated that. I hated somebody forcing and telling me what I had to eat, especially when you want to eat the healthy food. Like, I started to understand that carbs are good for you. Obviously I never had a problem with protein. I started to understand what I needed to do. And at this point, I was still skinny. But one thing that was really shocking to me when I went there, because they took me to a hospital while I was there at Duke University, and they did a bone density scan on me, like a DEXA scan, which you can scan for muscle mass and everything like that with a DEXA scan, but it was for bone density. So they did this bone density scan. They said I had the same bone density as like a 70 or 80-year-old woman. Like, my bones were that brittle because of how malnourished and how I destroyed my body with the lack of nutrition and just over-exercising I did to it. I believe that's what messed up my hormones and everything. That's why I am the way I am. Maybe that's the reason why I haven't been able to gain as much muscle compared to, other kids my age. Like, they're really muscular, like, and not fat. Like, they're lean and muscular, and they're not doing the things that I'm not doing. They're not eating the right way as I eat. They're not training with proper technique. They're not doing all the things that you need to do to optimize for muscle growth, which I want. I never got like my testosterone and everything checked at that time, but I did later, and that's why I'm on currently TRT, like testosterone replacement therapy, and I'm on a hormone replacement therapy dose of thyroid medication because my thyroid is off. Both my T3 and T4 levels were low. My TSH was high, which, if you don't know, TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. If your thyroid stimulating hormone is too high, that means that it's producing so much because it doesn't think the little amount that it's producing is getting the signal across to those glands that need to produce the other thyroid hormones for your body, like T3 and T4. I've been kind of, I guess, messed up ever since from that. Some other stories I wanna like talk about some other stories, like when I was in treatment too. Like, I had a lot of good friends while I was in treatment. A lot of them were aged differently. Some were older. Some were like maybe a little bit older because I was at the top of my age group, because there was two groups there, because it was mainly just all not young adults, but kids and teens. So I was in like I forget what the lower range of it was, but it was like something to 13, and then 13 and above was the other unit. And I was in the lower unit, so I was with some younger kids. And I made some good friends. There's only one my parents really keep in contact with still. It'd be interesting to hear how the others are doing. But even like me, I am doing a lot better than I think a lot of those kids are doing now. Like, I had it on the easy side. I was able to, I guess, recover from it and switch my mindset back into it because I was willing, I guess, to adapt or eat. I wanted to get out of there so bad. But there's some of those other kids, like, they had a tube in them from the entire time I had seen them in there. They didn't even want to drink water. That's how much they were afraid to do that stuff. Like, they were bad off. Like, I wasn't afraid to drink water at all because I knew water was good for me. They were afraid to gain any weight at all, which was insane. Like, even from water. But we keep up with the one girl. She's a younger girl, younger than me. She was a lot younger than me. I think she was in the lower age group, but they're really good people. And yeah, I don't want to list their names because I don't know if they're comfortable with it. But she is, from what I've heard, not doing as good as I have been. And I'm not saying that for like an ego thing, saying, "Oh, I'm cool because I conquered that. I got along with it." Some people, it's harder for them to get through it. And I get that, and she's going through that right now. And I don't think it's necessarily the eating anymore as much. Like, I think she's kind of got over that problem, but there's other problems that have developed because of that. I'm just going to say, I don't wish anybody to be able to have to go through what I went through. Honestly, yeah, I started this Mongoose mindset because I want to not only motivate people to do the things that they know they should be doing in real life, but actually help people not develop the same things that I had to go through. Because when I first started out, I didn't know anything. I was just going off of what I read in a book, making my own judgments. I didn't know how to do any of this properly, which you learn over time. 10 years later, I'm light years of what I knew back then. And a lot of it is just learning the information and continuously learning the information. Because a lot of people, they'll hear something and they'll remember it at first, but then it'll go in one ear and out the other because you don't use it. And if you don't use it, you lose it. It's just like with anything. Like if you don't go to the gym, you lose the muscle mass, you lose the strength, you lose your health. Like your health degrades usually. It might not degrade severely, but it'll probably degrade some. Or just anything else in life. If you play an instrument, if you don't do it, if you don't play it, you'll lose the ability to, or get worse at it at least. But I wanna touch on like one funny story while I was in there. Because when I was in there, I told you I hated being in there. There was one time, well actually it was multiple times, this was probably about 2 or 3 times. I tried to elope. They called it like Code Silver. I think it was Code Silver or something like that. So elopement's basically when you try to leave. You try to leave, you try to escape. But one time we were coming back from some type of talk with like my therapist or whatever. My mom was with me, and I'm like, I'm not going back there. We're leaving. We're going home. The therapeutic assistants, so they couldn't like touch you or anything or constrain you. They probably could if it came down to like a life and death situation. Like they couldn't just like grab you and hold you back or whatever. Like they knew like I was mad. I was pissed off that they weren't gonna let me leave. So they said, "Oh, go in the safe room or the like the padded room, the insane cell, or whatever you want to call it, the padded room." And they gave me a ball, and I was throwing this ball against the wall, like throwing it as hard as I could. They looked at me like I was crazy because I was, I probably was. I still am crazy. So yeah, they did that just so they could get my mom out of there. So when I saw my mom leaving, I ran and tried to go out, and like they locked the door, and I couldn't go out. And the second time, we were out at like the patio time, and we came back in, and my mom was coming out because she was talking with somebody, and I'm not going back up there. And somehow they convinced me to go back up there. They kind of scared me because they said, if you elope, the police are going to come after you and they're going to tackle you to the ground. They're going to bring you back here. I remember somebody telling me that. Like they're going to hurt you essentially, when they get you. Which I don't think that would not have happened. They wouldn't hurt a 12-year-old kid or tackle a 12-year-old kid. Would have probably just grabbed me if they could get their hands on me. Like there were times where we went out on like, I guess it wasn't patio time, but it was like an outing where you go in a van and you go somewhere. But like you literally go in a van and you go to a park, you'd walk to the seats in the park, you'd sit down for 30 minutes, you get up, get back in the van, drive back to the facility. That was it. That was an outing. And that's boring. I remember a few times we went to like, I think Duke Gardens or something like that. And then they had other outings, like restaurant outings, where they take you to a restaurant and make you eat. So it was kind of like a win-win situation for, I guess, each party. Like you got to get out of that boring facility for 1 or 2 hours, but they made you eat a meal at a restaurant. Like a few times we went to McDonald's and they made you eat a meal at McDonald's. Like it sounds silly to do that, like not want to eat that, but that's even how I feel today. Like I would never eat McDonald's. Like I remember them one time saying, "What if you were on the road and you were going down the road and there was no restaurant or no food or anything and you had to eat McDonald's?" And I would be like, I just wouldn't eat McDonald's. I always have my stuff packed and prepped even today. So I think that's enough for this episode. I appreciate everybody watching and hearing the story and understanding what I went through. If I'm not helping anybody who has the same problems that I went through right now through this video, hopefully this information can help you understand what somebody else may be going through with the eating disorder. At the end of the day, I've gone through it. I can give you a first-person perspective of what it feels like to be in that same situation. And maybe this offers you some guidance on how you can help those people in that situation, because it's a rough thing. It's a very tough mental health issue. And a lot of people kind of, like when I was in school, people they almost made fun of it. They were making jokes about it while I was there, and they didn't even know that I had anorexia or, was suffering with anorexia. It never made me mad or anything, them joking about that. It was just always like, you don't know what you're actually saying. You don't know what it's like to go through that unless you've gone through it. And it's a tough thing. It really is. I was nowhere near as bad as some of the other kids. I probably came in as worse condition. I came in, skinny as a skeleton, in worse condition than some of those kids. I wasn't as, I don't want to say this rudely, but I wasn't as messed up in the head or missing something up here than some of those other kids were, at least from an eating perspective and eating food. I mean, I feel like I'm still a little lost up here now because of the way I am with, bodybuilding and how disciplined I am to that, like training and eating and, just my aspect on that. But from an eating disorder aspect, I kind of had it easy compared to some of those other kids. And honestly, like looking at it, I don't even know if those kids, like just the way they were, they'll probably never be the same way. They'll probably never be a normal kid in their life, which is sad. But I think if I kind of spread that message of the eating disorder, I think people can prevent it before it happens. And spreading these educational videos of me talking about nutrition and training and how to live a lifestyle that is healthy, so you don't go down that rabbit hole and that bad road that I went down. And saying that, if you need help with your lifestyle, your nutrition, your dieting, your workout habits, whatever, please feel to contact me at mongoose-mindset01@gmail.com. Check out the website and see a little background of my story on the website. And next episode, we will get into the start of my high school and weightlifting journey. So that's this week's episode. And if you want to see last week's episode where I talk about Mongoose Mindset and the reason behind the name, check out this video. Bye.